we would like to be able to help people educate themselves based on their goals. Especially my part on education comes down to clear and analytical thinking, determining what your goals are, learning in a way that prioritizes the information you need first, and then understanding the processes rather than just learning names and regions, which is inevitable. Studying wine, you will have to learn regions and names and such, but it really won't stick around very much, that information in your mind, sitting down and thinking, if this, then what? Understanding the cause and effect. Then you have all this knowledge in your head, but how do you talk to a person who came to your restaurant as a diner? So you can't just go like, this wine is clear, pale lemon green with medium plus acidity and, intensive aromatics of primary characteristics of blah, 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 blah. You have to like synthesize it.
Ciao, y'all. I'm Jessica Dupuy, guest host for a special TEXSOM series on the Italian Wine Podcast, covering the 2025 TEXSOM Conference in Dallas, Texas. Join me in the heart of the Lone Star State as we dive into conversations with key speakers and attendees, exploring career paths, challenges, and the latest trends shaping the wine industry today. This series is proudly sponsored by the Texas Department of Agriculture's Uncork Texas Wines program, which celebrates Texas wine culture by promoting local wineries and grape growers, both in-state and around the world, building a vibrant community around the Texas-made wine. Be sure to subscribe and rate the show wherever you get your podcasts. And don't miss our Texas wine tidbit in every episode, a fun little fact, insight, or story that highlights the people and places behind this exciting wine scene. All right. Welcome, Dilek Caner. I am so glad to be able to have you on the Italian Wine Podcast. I have known you for years, but it's kind of fun to do this in a more formal setting. I wonder if you could kind of start by telling us a little bit about who you are and your background, how you got to wine, especially knowing that you have a PhD in economics. Maybe give us a little bit of context there.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Jessica, for including me. It's a great pleasure to be here. Yeah, my background, I do have a PhD in economics, and towards the end of that, I got interested in wine, and I thought maybe I should take a wine class. I took a WSET class, and then one thing led to another. I took a sommelier class. Before I knew it, I had a sommelier job that I thought, okay, I can't say no to that. I mean, that's a great experience. And then I got an offer from Restaurant Alain Ducasse, and I was thinking, I can't say no to that. And then I was introduced to the Wine and Spirits magazine crowd, and there was an opportunity there. And I said, I can't just let that go by. So just one thing led to another, and I found myself in wine. But the funny thing is, once I was in a cab in New York City, and we were just talking, the driver and I, and he said, so what do you have to study to get into wine? I said, well, I studied economics at first. And he goes, well, the economic situation made you an alcoholic. So that was that was his take on it.
Hot take from the New York taxi cab. I love it. So where are you originally from? Are you from Turkey?
I am from Turkey. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I drank wine as a kid as well. They would just water it down a little bit, give it to me at the table.
Yeah. So you make your way to the US. Fascinating that you became a sommelier, worked at Alain Ducasse, not a big deal, and have done studies too. So you did the Court of Master Sommeliers in WSET, but you were also a Master of Wine. When did you receive Master of Wine?
I received it in 2013.
Okay.
That was shortly I moved to Dallas. In New York, after Wine and Spirits magazine, I opened a school. I didn't do WSET classes. I did some certification classes, but they were proprietary. We did some tastings. Just didn't feel right to open a WSET school right across the corner from my mentors and instructors. So I didn't want to open it in New York. When my husband got a job in Dallas, and when we moved to Dallas, there wasn't a WSET school, so I opened it here. And shortly after, I received the master. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. So obviously Dallas and TEXSOM are connected because of location, et cetera, but kind of what was your story of kind of getting involved with TEXSOM, meeting James, and kind of how it all came together there?
So when I came to Dallas, everybody was talking about TEXSOM and like, what is TEXSOM? So my first time, I bought a ticket and joined as an audience, and I was hooked at that time. The quality of the seminars, it's very hard to see that kind of content even in conferences like that. So I was very excited. I met James as well, and then the year after, I think, or maybe the next year, when I received the MW title, then James invited me as a speaker, and I was sort of like, absolutely, I'll be there with bells on. And I went, and I have been joining every year. It is the place where you go and everybody puts kind of any kind of conflict or competition aside. And I know that when I go to TEXSOM, I will learn something and I will help people learn something.
Yeah, it's true. And it's, I like to remind people it's kind of like this family reunion every year because once you've
Yes,
gone, if you continue to go, it's like, I get to see these people at least once a year because we're all from different places, whether that's Texas, New York, West Coast. And then, a lot of people come from Europe, Asia. It's a really exciting time. This year in particular, you're going to be speaking on 2 seminars. So let's talk about one of them, which I'm personally excited about, and that's the wines of Turkey
yeah.
and also the culture, which I love that was an added piece of the title of the seminar, because it's not just that we're going to just be sipping and spitting wines, but you're going to help give us some context. Can you tell me a little bit about how you plan to approach that?
Yes, there are a few unique things about Turkey and Turkish wine. So we are known as a predominantly Muslim country, which is true, but there is a segment in the country, not non-Muslims, I mean Muslims and non-Muslims and everybody, but there's a segment of the country that is very, very involved in wine. So they have online groups, they have tasting groups. They very seriously get together and taste world's benchmark wines. And for Turkey, I mean, yes, I want to stress the fact that it is a secular country. It is secular. So buying alcohol, consuming alcohol, it is not illegal. But the administration that we have right now is more conservative. So there are punitive taxes, especially over wine and beer. Not so much rakı, maybe our, national alcoholic drink, the distilled spirit. But with wine, there are those punitive taxes. And even then, people go to Europe. They fly with wines in their suitcases. They bring them for their group members. They sit down and taste. So for Turkish wine, they get together and visit vineyards. There are so many people who are well versed in Turkish wine. So, and that community is very excited about wine in general and Turkish wine as well. So this, I think, is really quite unique. And that gives such dynamism to Turkish wine and the audience that drinks it. Another aspect is that the people who are getting into winemaking, some of those people are already very good wine drinkers. I mean, they have WSET is very important in Turkey. Many people are trying to get those qualifications, at least level 3, maybe even diploma at some point. The people who get into it, they are quite familiar with the world's wine scene and what kind of wines are available, which I sometimes find is lacking in some areas where winemakers know only their wine and are only interested in their wine. I think it's a great advantage that these people, these producers, actually know what good wine is and what the kind of like the minimum threshold is. So there is that. But on the other hand, there are many native grape varieties in Turkey. Right now, more than 70 are being made into wine by people who are trying to find and revive these varieties. So there needs to be lots of experimentation with these. I was just on the phone with a producer yesterday, and they were talking about how they were looking for these new varieties and how they make these experimental wines from different vineyards first. And then they bring it down to just a couple of vineyards that they want to work with. And then, of course, they have to experiment with winemaking as well, because these varieties are not established somewhere else with already well-known winemaking methods. So, I mean, there are challenges. There's a lot of experimentation, but there is so much excitement about it.
That's really cool. What do you hope people take away from the seminar once they've been able to taste these wines and kind of learn a little bit about what you want to share?
So first of all, Turkish wine is real.
Yeah.
It's really, it is a thing. It is not this thing that we taste and then, we hope and are happy when it actually tastes like wine. And we're like, oh yeah, not too bad. There's actually some very good wine. Of course, there are, lesser examples, but there is good wine. So I am hoping that people will, at least with some of these wines, taste them and realize that Turkish people really mean it when they are making wine. Another goal for me is to introduce some of the grape varieties that are native to Turkey so that people can actually know these different grape varieties. One thing I think that is worth mentioning is in Turkey itself, if you look at the market, people like those fuller bodied wines that are made from international varieties and so on. So it is quite a challenge for these producers to look for and to revive and to really try to introduce these grape varieties, which make super elegant wines that my colleagues and, sommelier friends would like. So I am very excited to show them in that lineup. And there are a few grape varieties that I am, of course, partial to as well.
What do you like?
For example, there is this grape called Hasan Dede.
Okay.
That the winery Vinkara, they found a vineyard in the middle of the country, close to Ankara in an area around Kalecik. If you look at Jancis Robinson's grape book, it's talking about simple wines being made from Hasan Dede, but that wine that they make, although it is not a super complex wine, it is so drinkable and so versatile, very pure in the finish. It is such a great pairing opportunity that I think people should be exposed to that variety. There is another variety, which is a red, which is called Karasakız.
Ooh.
Kara means black in Turkish.
Okay.
So Karasakız is black. It's almost like black gum. Many producers make wine from this grape. People have been growing it in various places and using different winemaking methods. When it is done well, it can be very elegant, Pinot Noir-like, red fruit-oriented, very refreshing. So we have an example of that. At some point, I am hoping to do a Karasakız tasting, sort of having these grapes, the wines from different places. So that's one. Another one is Erciş Karası. Erciş is a place to the very east of Turkey around Lake Van, and these wines come from over 1,700 meters around Lake Van, which normally has a very continental climate, but is moderated by this big lake. And very few wineries, as far as I know, I've seen only 2 wineries make wine from this grape. And the example that we will taste at TEXSOM at the seminar, I haven't tasted yet. So very excited about that. The other examples were fantastic. So these are just a few of those. Yeah.
I'm excited to experience it. And I'm really glad that James has thought to bring something like that to TEXSOM, because I think it'll be a discovery for so many people that are signed up for it. So thank you for doing that.
It's when James and I talked, I thought, really, this is really just something that TEXSOM would do. I can't think of another organization who would be so much behind these wines to bring them to people's attention, that I am very, very grateful to TEXSOM for doing that. And I am sure the producers are as well.
Yeah. I mean, if there's any place to be able to discover something, it's at TEXSOM. And I think it says so much about, this is the 20th year for the conference. And it says so much about the longevity of this conference, because this is the kind of thing that you get to experience when you come. There's just so many things. Like, I'll never forget experiencing Lebanese wine for the first time over a decade ago, with Chateau Moussard. Blew my mind. I had no idea. That's when I was just getting into the wine industry. So Let's talk about the other seminar you're going to do. So you are going to actually kind of help give a primer for people who are moving towards certifications and kind of want to do anything from you understand both the Court of Master Sommeliers, but you also understand the Institute of Masters of Wine and obviously WSET. So what is it that you hope to be able to kind of give to students who are attending this particular seminar?
So that seminar I am doing in collaboration with Sarah Jane Evans, who is a fellow MW. So Sarah Jane has been a chairman of the Institute of Masters of Wine in the past, and she has a quite prolific writing career. And I have this quite long and intensive experience in wine education. So we thought it would be a really good combination, the experiences of the two of us. We thought about, yes, I will talk a little bit about WSCT and we'll talk about the Masters of Wine, but we also would like to be able to help people educate themselves through WSCT, through Quartermaster Sommelier, IMW, or any other way based on their goals. And especially my part on education, the whole gist of it really comes down to clear and analytical thinking, kind of determining what your goals are, learning in a way that prioritizes the information you need first, and then understanding the processes rather than just learning names and regions, which is inevitable. Studying wine, you will have to learn regions and names and such, but it really won't stick around very much. That information in your mind won't stick around very much if you're not sitting down and thinking, if this, then what? Sort of, you have to think about, just say, fermentation process. What is really happening? What really understanding, sort of visualizing, understanding the cause and effect, and then be able to put that information together and synthesize it in a way that is relevant to your audience. So that's where Sarah Jane also contributes a lot from her experience. You have all this knowledge in your head, but how do you talk to a person who came to your restaurant as a diner, as opposed to the sommelier that you are looking to sell wine to from your portfolio? So you can't just go like, this wine is clear, pale lemon green with medium plus acidity and, intensive aromatics of primary characteristics of blah, 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 blah. You have to synthesize it. And Sarah Jane has great experience in talking to different audiences. She will talk about that. She will talk about AI as well, how to use AI in your research. Yeah, so our goal is basically to guide people to help themselves learn whatever they are pursuing.
Okay, got it. Well, I think it's very helpful because I think regardless of what certification you may be going after, ultimately you have to figure out what process is going to work for you, right? Like, how are you going to attack it? And I wonder if you might be able to kind of give an idea of there are a lot of people who think I want to go after this certification and they start down that process. What is it in your mind that actually helps someone succeed, right? Like to actually get to that point. What are some of the things that you would suggest?
Are you referring to mostly the MW?
I mean, mostly MW. I know that you also are familiar with the court and other things, but I think, just what's the difference between I'd like to do this and I'm going to apply to do this, whichever it is, and then what actually is the thing that gets you across that finish line?
I have an overload because there are so many things to say.
There's so many.
One thing that, as I see so many students go through this, I am also organizing the residential seminars for IMW's first year program. So I do see a lot of first year students come through the system as well. I talk to MW students, my peers when I was doing it, my own experience of doing it. Probably the first step is to be able to filter what you need to do first, what you need to learn first. And strangely enough, it very much comes down to who you are, how clearly you can think and identify your goals. So meaning this, in the MW program, once you're in the program, you will meet so many people who are studying different things. Somebody is going to come and tell you about all of these different rootstocks that they know. And you're thinking, man, I don't know anything about this. I know just two or three. I need to go learn all of this. And then somebody writes an essay about yeast strains, and you have stuff in there that you haven't heard in the last 10 years. And you're thinking, oh my God, I don't know anything about this. So if you are thinking this way, you are being pulled into many different directions, and you will never be content, and you will never be consistent in the way that you need to study. So you need to make a study plan. That's the first thing. You need to make a study plan that is clearly filtered as to what are your priorities. If you get other input from people, somebody who knows a lot about yeast strains, think about it. How much of it do I need to incorporate into my program? So being cool-headed is the first thing. Another thing is consistency. You need to do it not 6 hours every Saturday and Sunday, but maybe an hour every day. That helps a lot more. Being able to accept feedback from people who have gone through the same process, and taking responsibility and having an open mind as to how you can modify your approach to be able to write the essays or tasting notes in the way that makes the most sense for this exam. And last but not least, I have to say, tasting is the part that many people are challenged with these last, I don't know, 10 years or so. When tasting, being honest with yourself about what you are tasting and why you are tasting it. It is not about writing 100 tasting notes in 1 week. It is writing about 2 tasting notes, but thinking through it very well and grasping and being able to convey your deductions from certain observations. So it's a lot about it is thinking and analyzing and synthesizing rather than panicking and trying to do a lot of things. And I see that happen a lot.
Yeah.
So much. And I see a very low success rate with that kind of approach. Although it's not impossible. I mean, you can probably succeed in that way, but it takes a lot more effort and kind of lowers your chances.
Yeah. So you almost have to kind of have a Zen approach, right? Like, don't let the noise get to you, stay focused.
Yes.
Get the subject matter down, ask the right questions to be able to give the right answers. I think that's really instructive. And I think that helps a lot because I do feel like, having been through some of the process with different certifications, it is easy to get very sidetracked by other people. You hear someone
Yes.
else talking, you hear someone else's experience, you hear someone else's mastery of a particular topic, and then you just panic. And, you let your own insecurity get to you. So I think that's a really good piece of advice, is to try to not do that.
I don't know if you want to include this or not, but I'm just going to tell you this very, very short story.
Yes.
When I was a student in the MW program, we were at the residential seminar, as students, and we were writing essays. So there was one MW with 4 or 5 of those, each MW took a small group and giving us feedback. The MW started reading the beginning paragraph of my essay and asked the group, so what do you think? And there was one student who thought that this is too simplistic and, there's no way that this essay is going to pass. And the MW started saying, this is actually the best way to start this essay. And I am thinking, do you know how much effort it takes to make this as simple as you see it? So, needless to say, that student did not end up as an MW. But if you are writing to impress, that somehow does not work. But if you are writing from a real understanding and clear communication, then you have a much better chance.
That's a great story, actually. And I think that's something that, as a writer, as a journalist, I remember being challenged in grad school. Every day y'all are going to come in and you're going to write a 500-word essay. It's harder than you think to write only
Yeah.
500 words.
Did you do it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, we had to. You get
Oh my
trained in
God.
it. It becomes a formula, which now, as a journalist, I get the formula. I understand the formula. Like I'm working on a book, trying to write creatively now where I don't have as much constraint. Working that muscle is harder because I'm used to one way. And so we could talk about it for hours, but I
Yeah.
love that being simple actually is a challenge, but it actually is the best challenge to try to embrace in something like this, because it can get your thoughts across clearly, but then also it shows that this is not about trying to show off. It's about trying
Yeah.
to express knowledge that you have and the synthesis, the ability to analyze. I'm looking forward to it. I hope there are some good Q&As during the seminar. I don't want to only take the time with this, but I'm assuming if you want to tell us a little bit about the Dallas Wine Center, because it's been around for about 2 decades. You do classes such as WSET, but what else does the Dallas Wine Center do?
It is in its 15th year right now. So Dallas Wine Center, it does mainly WSET courses. I have
Okay.
this other arm of the business, which is called Blind Bishop, which is tied to our venue where we do the Dallas Wine Center classes, but also we do winemaker events, seminars, dinners, other educational events, some pairing classes. We are also, as a venue, open on Saturday nights starting September 13th, where people can come and taste flights, taste blind flights. And it's amazing how regular people who are just, wine drinkers for fun enjoy blind tastings. As
Yeah.
Dallas Wine Center, when I started, we were lucky when 4 people registered for a WSET course. And I was thinking like, oh, we'll be able to pay half of our cost. Yay! And then we were able to grow and get the word out. So
Yeah, that's wonderful. So, last question. Since this is the Italian Wine Podcast for the TEXSOM series, I wonder if you could share how, if at all, Italian wine may have influenced your career, your own personal satisfaction, or anything and everything in between.
yeah, actually, Italian wine does have a very special place for me. Because
Yes.
when I was at Wine and Spirits, I got more into it. I used to go to Montalcino for the Brunello tastings. Actually, Brunello di Montalcino is my husband's favorite wine. And I love Aglianicos. I mean, I think world-class, great variety with great potential for aging. I mean, the Etna Rossos that all the sommeliers are very excited about right now. But apart from that, there are so many other Italian wines as well. When you find something really great from Italy that maybe some people have not so much discovered just yet, it is a fantastic feeling. And you can do that when you go to Italy. I've had people have me taste 2-3 decade old Orvietos. And I was thinking like, who said these wines cannot age? So I've had great experiences with Italian wine and I hope to have more.
Don't we all? I'm sure it will be possible, especially at TEXSOM. We'll have some options, but yes, just in life in general. Well, Dilek, thank you so much for joining us for this. I think it's really exciting to learn in this particular episode a little bit about Turkish wine, but then also kind of about the process for certification for different wine categories. I look forward to seeing you in Dallas. I know it's going to be hot, but I believe that we will have a really great time, and I'll see you soon.
Yeah, thank you, Jessica. This was great fun. And I'll see you at TechSom in a few days.
In just a few days. See you soon. Here's a Texas wine tidbit that shows a very different side of the Lone Star State. The Texas Hill Country AVA, spanning 9 million acres, which is 3.6 million hectares, it's the largest AVA entirely within a single state, and the third largest AVA in the United States. Its rolling limestone hills and oak-studded landscapes and clear rivers make it feel more like Tuscany than Texas. Yet this region stands firmly on its own. Italian varietals like Sangiovese, Turaldago, Aglianico, and Montepulciano are thriving here. The Hill Country isn't just about vines, it's also about visitors. More than 1 million people travel here each year, making it one of the most vibrant wine tourism destinations in the United States. And with its combination of rural charm, high-quality wines, and proximity to Austin and San Antonio, the Texas Hill Country proves that fine wine can flourish far outside the usual maps. And it's not just about what grows in the ground, but what the place gives to the glass, a sense of place and identity that speaks as clearly as any European appellation. This series is proudly sponsored by the Texas Department of Agriculture's Uncork Texas Wines program, which celebrates Texas wine culture by promoting local wineries and grape growers, both in-state and around the world, building a vibrant community around the Texas-made wine. Be sure to subscribe and rate the show wherever you get your podcasts. And don't miss our Texas wine tidbit in every episode, a fun little fact, insight, or story that highlights the people and places behind this exciting wine scene.